In the annals of American history, there are dark and harrowing chapters that refuse to fade away, beckoning us to remember and confront the shadows of our past. Among these haunting tales, a story epitomizes injustice, racial prejudice, and the enduring struggle for equality. This is why they want us never to forget the story of the Scottsboro Boys, a chilling reminder of the depths of our collective history and a call to illuminate the darkness that still lingers in our society today. This video tells a story that is often left out of history books, even though it is both sad and moving. On March 25, 1931, two white women on a Southern Railroad freight train in northern Alabama said that 9 black teens had raped them. Haywood Patterson, Olin Montgomery, Clarence Norris, Willie Robertson, Andy Wright, Ozzie Powell, Eugene Williams, Charlie Weems, and Roy Wright were all looking for work when a fight broke out between other riders over race. A young white man stepped on the hand of one of the Scottsboro Boys, which is said to have started the fight. The train driver made the young white guys get off. They made up a story about how the black guys were to blame because they were angry. When the train got to Paint Rock, Alabama, the boys from Scottsboro were met by a group of angry people and charged with the attack. Victoria Price and Ruby Bates, two white women who were also on the freight train, were charged with being homeless and having sexual relations with other people without permission. To get out of these charges, they made up a story that the Scottsboro Boys had raped them. Only 4 African American youths knew each other before the freight train disaster. They were Georgians and Tennesseans, not Alabamans. They searched for high-paying employment. Leroy and Andrew Wright were 2 of them. As the cases gained national prominence, they were known as the Scottsboro Boys, even though they had never been there or were born there. The alleged rape, a delicate matter in the South due to Jim Crow legislation, drew an angry white mob to the jail. The sheriff called the Alabama National Guard to stop a killing. An all-white, all-male jury found the Scottsboro lads guilty and condemned 8 to death in April 1931. The youngest, 13-year-old Leroy Wright, had a hung jury because one juror wanted him to go to prison for life instead of being executed. Leroy Wright was imprisoned until 1937, while his co-defendants were retried after a mistrial. The U.S. Communist Party and International Labor Defense protested worldwide. The Communists fought for workers' rights, especially for black Southerners. The ILD and NAACP argued over who would defend the 9 in court. They prevailed after enlisting the defendants' moms. With help from the ILD, the mothers traveled around the country and the world, speaking at rallies and calling on people to do something to change the decisions. In June of that year, the court stopped the boys' executions until the Alabama Supreme Court heard their case. But the Alabama Supreme Court upheld the convictions of 7 of the accused in March 1932. Williams got a new trial because he was a child when he was found guilty. In November 1932, the U.S. Supreme Court decided in Powell, Alabama, that the Scottsboro defendants were not given the right to a lawyer, which violated the 14th Amendment and their right to due process. The Supreme Court overturned the Alabama decision and sent the cases back to the lower courts. This set an important legal precedent for protecting the right of black Americans to good legal representation. Even though they had a new chance of getting out of jail, the appeal was slow and difficult. Even though there was a lot of proof that the boys were not guilty, one of the best pieces of proof came from the accuser herself. At the beginning of 1932, a letter from one of the attackers, Ruby Bates, was found. In it, she said that her story about being raped was a lie. She said that the Scottsboro cops pushed her into making the first accusation. Even so, the redo took a long time. To show that the county was running an unfair trial by not letting black people serve on the jury, Samuel Leibowitz, a well-known defense lawyer for the ILD, called on black leaders from Decatur to swear that black people could serve on the jury. Francis Tate, who is from Decatur and started the group celebrating early Old Town with art, said that the Old Town community of Decatur helped keep the Ku Klux Klan and other white racists from attacking the defendants' witnesses and lawyers. The home of E.L. Lewis, a black defense witness, was burned down, and he later died of poisoning. Frank Sykes, a black defense witness, moved to Baltimore because he was scared and felt like he was in danger. Members of the Old Town community covering the case also kept black reporters safe so they could get their stories written. During the trial, the governor called in the National Guard to give the courts and the jail even more security. During the trials, Leibowitz was also watched over by armed guards. In 1933, Haywood Patterson, one of the boys, went back to court before Judge James Horton. His defense lawyer brought in a lot of witnesses and made a strong case that the two girls on the train had lied. Their story did not match what doctors found or what other witnesses said. On the last day of the trial, Leibowitz pretended to give his final statement and then called Ruby Bates as a witness for the defense. This was a twist worthy of a Hollywood movie. Bates said in her statement that none of the 9 had raped her. Victoria Price had told her to say the false thing. Bates and Price didn't want to go to jail for breaking the Mann Act, which made it illegal to cross state lines for prostitution or other immoral reasons. This law was often used as an excuse to arrest black people. Price and Bates lied about the 9 black teens so they wouldn't have to go to jail. Even though Patterson's defense didn't seem to have any holes, the jury found him guilty and suggested he be put to death after only a few minutes of discussion. But Judge James Horton didn't think it was right. He went against what the jury had decided and ordered that the hearing start all over again. Because of this, he would lose his job as a judge in the next election. Patterson wasn't the only one of the Scottsboro boys to have a jury refuse to believe him, even though the proof was strong. On his second hearing, an all-white jury found Clarence Norris guilty, so he went to the Supreme Court. In the Norris v. Alabama case from 1935, it was decided that it was against the Constitution to keep black people from sitting on juries for black defendants. Alabama's way of picking jurors was biased against people of color, which went against Norris's 14th Amendment right. Both Patterson and Norris were retried, found guilty, and ordered to death by a judge who was more sympathetic to the prosecution's side. Late in 1933, Leibowitz argued the case for the ILD before the Alabama Supreme Court. The court ruled unanimously against the defense's request for new trials, and the case went to the U.S. Supreme Court for a second hearing. In January 1935, the Supreme Court overturned the guilty verdicts in the Scottsboro Boys case. They ruled in Norris v. Alabama that excluding African Americans from juries denied the defendants a fair trial. The court recommended a re-examination of Patterson's case. This decision had a significant impact, leading to future jury integration nationwide. The NAACP and civil rights groups joined the ILD to form the Scottsboro Defense Committee. Patterson was found guilty for the 4th time in 1936 and received a 75-year prison sentence. Powell and a deputy sheriff were involved in a violent incident, but both survived. Patterson's conviction was upheld by the Alabama Supreme Court, and Norris received another death sentence in his 3rd trial. Andy Wright and Williams were also found guilty, receiving lengthy prison terms. However, the rape charges against Powell were dropped, and he was convicted of assault. Montgomery, Roberson, Williams, and Leroy Wright were released as the rape charges against them were dismissed. In 1938, Governor Bibb Graves changed Norris's sentence to life in prison and denied pardons for the other 5 convicted individuals. The other 5 were released that year, mostly through parole over the next 12 years. Haywood Patterson successfully escaped in 1948. The Scottsboro case highlighted the need for social justice and gained media attention. It inspired books like Native Sonend and To Kill a Mockingbird. The story showcases a dark time in American history for black people, emphasizing the ongoing fight for racial justice against systemic racism and police violence. What do you think of the video? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button before you go. Thanks for watching.